Well, it was a friend of mine who used to work at NBC named Tom Brokaw, who was the anchorman of the nightly news there. And over the years, Tom would come on the show, and we got to be kind of friendly from the program. And Tom had purchased a ranch down south, and he kept telling me how great it was, and on and on and on. And I always just couldn't really imagine myself being the kind of person that would, be comfortable in Montana, or that Montana would have any need for. And then after about 5 or 6 years of him telling me, you really ought to look into it, you really ought to go out there, I was persuaded to take a look, and just fell in love with it immediately. And it was because of Tom. And most of what I've tried to do is kind of because of things he has done, things he's told me. He's been a tremendous teacher for me, and since we've had the property out there. And what I soon came to realize, the people that we know, the neighbors and the people we know in the community of Choteau have become good friends, and are as compelling for me and my family as is the experience of living in that country.
Do you find that when you're in Choteau that people respect your privacy and leave you alone?
I get a lot of warning shots. There he is! Get him! They're very sweet to me, and I have every reason to understand why in the beginning they might have been skeptical, because honest to God, I didn't know what I was doing in Montana, and still don't know what I'm doing in Montana, and have relied heavily on our ranching neighbors and people we've met in the community to help us, because going out there and buying property is the easiest part of it. That land, as rugged and as tough and as imposing as it appears, it needs everybody's help. So you can't just buy the land and go to sleep. So we've learned almost everything we know from people like Tom and from the neighbors, and I can't stress enough how and what a surprise it was that we would find all of these terrific people, and it's been such a positive experience for the family.
Well, how did you end up there when Tom Brokaw is down in the southern part of the state?
This is a good question, Fred. I knew that there were a lot of show business people who owned property parts of Montana. And when I started looking around, I said to the guy, I don't want to go where those people are. And he said, oh, fine, we have just the place for you. So we went up on the front. And, I think I hear the wind from here. So that's how we ended up there.
You did get some 90 and 100 mile an hour wind gusts.
140. We have on the the wind gauge, we've clocked it at 130 miles an hour, 130 plus, yeah.
So you can watch that from New York City to see just how bad the wind really is.
I mean, I've been out there for a few windstorms, and it's funny, but I don't have to be there 365 days a year. But I mean, once or twice a month, they got to go up to Canada to get the lawn furniture back. It's bizarre. It's crazy.
It seems like, to my knowledge, you're probably the only one in that area. They're either down in the Livingston area, or they're over by Flathead Lake, where
that's right.
Jack Hanna and Connie and Chung and Borovich.
Yeah, and good for them. And where we are, there must be close to 10 people, and that's pretty nice. It's a tough part of the country, but in the beginning we were intimidated by it, and it's still easy to be intimidated by the land and the climate and the conditions, but it also is it's such an admirable part of the state. The Rocky Mountain front is you have the overlap of those two ecosystems. It's thrilling to be a part of, and my family and I have seen things and experienced things that never in my life I thought I would see. I mean, I had a 300-pound black bear in the house one morning, and
I want to know about that.
That doesn't happen here in the city much. But it's just been a tremendous experience for us.
Did the bear have a key, or how did it get in?
This guy, here's how dumb I am. At about 4:30 in the morning, I hear stuff. I'm in bed, and I didn't really want to get up because it's cold and it's dark, and this was September or so. And I finally was able to put myself back to sleep because I convinced myself that I bet somebody's making me breakfast. Now, I was the only one at the ranch, but I thought, I'll bet somebody's come out from town to make me breakfast. So I go back to sleep, and it continues, the banging and the stuff. And so I open the door, because in the back of my mind I'm thinking, could be a bear. And sure enough, I look into the kitchen, and there's a bear standing up on his hind legs, swatting at the pots hanging on the rack, and he's got the faucet on. He's, making himself a drink or something. And I start looking around the kitchen, and the guy, I mean, not that I have the only bear story in Montana, but he pulled the refrigerator away from the wall, taken the pans out of the drawer, twisted them. He'd gotten a hold of a box of beeswax candles, was eating the beeswax candles, was tearing open boxes of pasta, had gotten open a can of a bottle of corn oil, and it was smeared all over him and all over the floor. He'd made himself a sandwich and was having a cigar when I finally was able to, so I just closed the door and I called the guy in town. I said, "You got a bear?" So he came out and it was, I know it wasn't supposed to be, but this whole episode lasted for about 5 hours because we had a bear in the house. And then I thought he'd gone downstairs, so I go downstairs, and then he and I pass in the hallway, and we, he could have just eaten me, and would have, he probably received an award, but it was one of the most fun experiences of my life. Now I know that there are really many bad things about this. You don't want to habituate the animal, but it was thrilling and fun, and sadly the story doesn't have a happy ending, but it was exciting, and I'm sorry it doesn't have a happy ending. They relocated him in the Great Bear Wilderness. The guys came out and got him, and he was shot and killed by an outfitter heading on his way back to the front, which takes the fun out of the story.
Sure. But firecrackers, is that what got the animal out of it?
Yeah, we didn't know what to do. I was so dumb. I had a box of lacrosse balls, and he's over in the corner, and I'm winging the lacrosse balls at him. This is a 300-pound bear. There's just the lack of intellect is stunning. Nothing, because when he was done eating, he even went to sleep. So we lobbed some those little what do you call them, silver salute things, or I don't know what they're called, the big things, and that got him out. Took about 3 of those, and he went running out the door.
9/11 certainly changed your show and your attitude, and the birth of your son Harry, which is, it seems to me that it's made you a different person of sorts. Do you see it that way?
Well, I don't know. It certainly feels that way. I don't know how much of it is relevant to the show, but anybody who's had a son, anybody who's had a family, knows what goes on, knows the mechanism there, and having waited so long to have a child, I didn't know. I didn't fully understand, and then when it happens, then everything makes sense. The kind of this full of brook trout, and they're gorgeous. They're just jewel-like, and the secrets are removed, and what is important becomes clear. So from that standpoint, I think the responsibility I have as a parent, and anybody has as a parent, is to try and be a better person for that kid, because hopefully that'll make the kid a better person.
What do you and Harry like to do when you come to Montana?
Last summer was full of brook trout, and they're gorgeous. They're just jewel-like, and the first time he was old enough to kind of understand the idea of fishing, and he would pretend to fish in his bedroom and off the couch and off the kitchen and wherever, the roof, and so now we could actually go fishing. And I kept telling him, don't worry this year. So we went up to this big old beaver pond they're coloring, but they're only, they don't get much bigger than this because they're mutated or something. I don't know. I got to get a guy looking at them. So Harry and I went up there with a buddy of mine, and we were catching live crickets and hooking them up on the thing, and then and of course the brook trouts are just crazy, and so he was actually catching fish, and to see him in his little 3-year-old hand holding one of these just gorgeous little fish, and he was delighted about catching the grasshoppers and hooking them up, just as much fun for him as catching the brook trout. And then we kind of would show him, okay, and he would take them off and watch him swim away. And after about 20 minutes of this, we got a pretty good sized brook trout. And he said, "Let's take him home and eat him." I said, Well, all right.
So, indeed, did that happen?
No, no. But I kind of admired his spirit about the process. If you're going to go to the trouble of catching grasshoppers and hooking them on and getting the fish, you might as well eat it. So that was, that, and he likes buffalo, and we like going out looking at the horses and the cattle, and I mean it's a wonderland for adults. So I can only imagine. This is an upbringing I'm sorry I didn't have an experience with when I was a kid.
What are some of the other things you involved in horses? You like riding horses?
We have horses. He's was on a horse when he was, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, and he's not quite ready yet. He might be turning a corner because we've had other kids out there his age who just fall in love with it and take right to it. He's still sitting on the porch a little bit. He likes climbing. He likes for some of the kids in trails seem like an automatic connection. You put him on a trail and he's gone. You got to get the Forest Service out looking for him. So he loves hiking, and so far he's liked fishing, and he knows in his future there's going to be some horse activity.
Well, you must like people because you were in the parade in Choteau a few years ago.
Yeah, that's right. I think we were.
Yeah.
We were not only in the parade. It rained like crazy for the 4th of July parade, and we had an entry, and myself and Jenny Barha were driving a team of her draft horses, and we had some kids dressed up and stuff, and I think we won grand prize that year. And I was excited because it was $350, and I'm in it for the dough.
Sure.
And then the next year we came in second, and a bunch of little kids from the 4-H won, and that really upset me. And so I threatened him. I said, look, if you 4-H punks think you're gonna, and I said, then I won't enter anymore. And then the year after that, they took away the cash prize. So I said, well, what's the point? I mean, the whole thing was fixed, don't you think? I mean, look, I'm a professional entertainer. You think I'm going to get beaten by 4-H kids? That doesn't happen, Fred. This is not a fair fight.
You've done some wonderful things in the community of Choteau that I don't think people expected, but and this was last summer, an anonymous benefactor brought Willie Nelson to town.
Right.
Do you know who that was?
No, I don't know anything about that. It was a nice evening. I think, I don't know what goes on in Great Falls over the 4th of July. I mean, I hear about it and read about it, but I've never been there for it. But the 4th of July in Choteau is tremendous. It's like 2 or 3 days. Great stuff. They have a nice parade. They have a big picnic. They have the big steak fry. And then they have the rodeo, which is tremendous. And it's a wonderful 2 or 3 day event, and I know towns all over the West have those, but where I came from in Indianapolis, we didn't so much have that, and here we don't so much have that. But it's it's just like it's almost better than any other holiday because it's warm and everybody's family comes out and there's stuff to do, and it's just a great celebration. So it's been a lot of fun.
The reunions are pretty common there. Do you get a chance to bring your family out quite often?
Yes. The first time my mom was there, every summer we try to load up as many people as, because, you just want to, your instinct is to share that experience. I mean, just the sky. I know it's a cliche, but it's the truth, and I remember the first time my mom was out there. And Mom never has much to say. We're sitting down at dinner first day, and we'd kind of given her a tour of the ranch, and she didn't say anything. And so we're sitting there at dinner, and finally Mom says, "David?" I said, "Yeah, Mom." "What's the elevation?" I said, "I don't know, just about a mile." Oh, that was it.
Where you're at, we have a little property over by Wolf Creek. It's nothing, where you're at. But do you notice that in the evening, or maybe you have too much lights, but it's like you can almost touch the stars at night?
Well, here's the way we have come to describe it. The Milky Way is so bright what you're talking about. That it actually, the light of the Milky Way washes out the stars and the planets. So as dark as it is, it makes the Milky Way much brighter than I've ever seen it anywhere else I've ever been in the world. It's remarkable.
What do you plan on doing with Harry? Are you going to encourage him to follow in your footsteps? Or would you say yes or stay away from it? Or
well, that's a good question. I think he's well, of course, I think he's a pretty entertaining kid. I don't know. A friend of mine whose son drives race cars for a living, and the obvious question is, doesn't that scare the pants off of you that your son is driving race cars at 200 miles an hour? And he said, well, before every race, I just say a prayer that he's safe and that he's allowed to pursue his dream. So I thought, well, that's a lot of wisdom right there.
Any plans for a brother or sister for Harry, or is one enough?
Well, no, one is not enough, but I mean, good Lord, take a look at me, Fred.
Well, you're about the same age as I am, and that would be an experience.
Well, you want to take a shot at it?
Well, I'm not sure. I think I'd rather have grandkids where you could just feed them sugar, shake them, and send them home.
That's right. Well, I have my own, Harry is my grandson, the way it is. That's the way I feel. But yes, I would love to have some more.
It is so funny to see you and Jack Hanna on, and we talked about this a couple of years ago with Jack, that he said, when you leave, he leaves. But he said that you are so funny together, the two of you, and you respect his animals. What do you think? What do you think of Jack? I mean,
well, Jack came to us years and years ago, and I kind of knew of him through some mutual friends in Columbus, Ohio. And he's been coming on our show, the old show at NBC, and then also this show. Geez, I don't know, for 20 years or better now. And he's endlessly entertaining, and he's such a likable fellow. And he, as you watch him, you kind of get to worry a little bit about him, and because, I mean, first of all, nobody can be that dumb. We know that it's got to be an act. You can't be that dumb walking around. So that makes it all such fun, and he's, he knows what he's talking about, and he's been great for us. It's just he's very entertaining. And the animals, and it's a great combination that I can just sit there. So, I mean, Jack gets all the credit in the world.
He can't figure out why you won't come over and see him. Come over the hill and see him in Montana.
Well, he can come over the hill and see me. Once I'm there, I kind of like staying there.
And that's why you're where you're at, isn't it? Is because you're kind of isolated in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's I didn't know anything about the Rocky Mountain Front, and the first 2 or 3 years we learned quite a lot, and still are learning quite a lot about it. But I just, whenever I travel around the state, which, like I said, is not much, and then I come back to the airport and I'm making that drive from Great Falls to Choteau, I'm reminded why I like it so well, because things start to settle down and spread out, and everything's nice and flat, and then off to the west you have the front, the mountains, and it's pretty nice.
So when you get there, you like to stay put?
Yeah, we drive up to Glacier, which is, you get to see the hand of God up there, for heaven's sakes. And we have a smaller place down in Madison County, so we go down there. But it's always, I mean, I think where we are now, you get a look at what Montana was, 50, 60 years ago, and have a lot of respect for that.
You don't see too many people going to that area for some reason.
See a lot of folks on their way to Glacier, and I think that there's no ski resorts there. We have one little ski area in our neighborhood, the Teton Pass, and I think the wind keeps people. I mean, I know people that come the end of May and have not been able to get out of their pickup truck till Christmas because of the wind, and that's, you can't expect people to live in a pickup truck 8-9 months.
Most of my forecasts for your area are windy today and dark tonight.
I know. That's exactly what it is. And whenever you're talking about the wind in Great Falls, we automatically tack on another 50 miles an hour in the front. Yeah, it's just crazy.
No, there have been planes overturned right there in Choteau.
Yeah, I believe that.
Another guy that is fun to watch you on the show is Regis.
Regis is the best, and when he decides to retire, there's not going to be anybody like him, and he's just pure television. He just sits down and he starts talking, and he talks about his night before, he talks about his lunch, talks about whatever, and he makes it very entertaining. And I have endless respect for Regis because he's one of those guys. You know, there were just a handful of them there. Jack Parr was kind of like that. Johnny Carson, in a different way, was very, very enjoyable to watch and satisfying to watch. And Regis is certainly unique, and I just think the world of Regis. It makes me a little sad that you know, I want Regis to still be, you know, 55 years old, so he could kind of still be, but not that he's not getting it done now, but there's going to be a time when he decides he's had about. I'll really miss him when he retires.
Would you consider going and having dinner with him sometime?
Yeah, we had dinner, and it was one of the biggest wasted times of my life. I mean, you see him on the show, and he's peppy, and he's hopping up and down, and he's talking to people and you know, doing handstands and stuff. You get him to dinner, and he's just not, honest to God. I don't know whether it's because he gets up so early or what happens, but it's just Regis, and also I think it has to do when the check comes. He's just, you know, God forbid he picks up a check.
Well, we're running out of time here, but we want an extended invitation if you ever feel like coming by KRTV in Great Falls.
Well, I'd like
to do the weather.
Yeah, I will come in and watch. I'd like to come in and stand next to you because I don't know anything about the weather, but if I just stand next to you.
I'll teach you everything I know.
All right, thanks, Fred.
Okay.
I appreciate it.